Well, I so wish we
Hi,
were doing
everybody.
this in person, and I'm so glad we're doing this. So, say, I love you. I have just mad respect for you. You are consistently, not only leading a top producing team in this business, you are consistently leading, you're ahead of the pack. And we've missed you because I know the last 3 years have been crazy for you. And so that is partly why I wanted you to share, because our theme for our awards this year is head down, heart up. And I think for so many of us that if we could look back at the last few years, we could say it's been a year of having to have our heads down in business to do the things that we know we need to do. And it's been a time to really choose to have our hearts up. So first of all, okay, you were in Mexico, not just for fun, although it looked very fun and I wish I had been with you, but you were there because of Her Best Life. And so share with everybody, because I know that's a passion project for you that's turned into an amazing business. Share a little bit about where that came from and kind of what your heart is for that.
Yeah, I'm so thankful to be a part of, honestly, Keller Williams in our office, because the culture and the leadership that we have here with all of you all as servant leaders, it's so hard and rare to find. So I think sometimes when we go to these national events, we get reminded of how special we have it here at home, because I've literally had my entire career in real estate here at the Dallas Preston Road office. So I'm really thankful for that. And because of my partnership with Barb, aka Mom, who started our team, I had the privilege of being in Gary Keller's mastermind starting when I was like 23, in the top 100 room. And it was like Seychelle and then everyone like 20 years older. That was like, there's nobody near my age bracket at all. And so I've gotten to grow up in that room, which is really special. And once we got married and then we had our daughter, Quinn, there were 100 of us in this room, and I started looking around, and I think Wendy Papazan at the same time, who had younger kids too, started looking around and realized like there's only 10 out of the 100 people in this room that are women with business they're leading, and young kids at home or children they're trying to raise as well. And it can get really lonely when you're in as male, female, whatever association you have. I can get really lonely at that age because you were just like in it. And something that the men in the room do really well, and I want to appreciate, is I think when I've observed like men on sports teams naturally echo chamber each other in the best way. Like when someone says something, what we noticed in the room, like individually, is they would go, yes, what Tommy said was an awesome idea. And then what Brad said was fantastic. And they naturally amplify each other. And what's interesting about women is because our DNA nature is to nurture, we actually, when someone stands up like that, or there's two of us standing up and there's another powerful person up as well, it's often actually a woman's nature to go, no, it's okay, you go ahead. And if you do that enough over time, what happens is actually your voice and perspective aren't actually represented in the room. And it's not because of a lack of opportunity. It's not because of somebody putting you down by any means. It's your choices created that. And what we realized was, being in the space that we were in, it was becoming more lonely because we weren't echo chambering each other. We weren't championing each other. And it was not to take away from anyone else in the room. We realized that our perspective wasn't there. So we got together and started masterminding 8 years ago. There were 5 of us, and then that grew to 11, and just started like unconditionally supporting each other in wherever we were in our lives, whether it was wealth building or business, or how the heck do I have a marriage in the middle of this, or I have a body I want to live in, or my spirituality is like lacking right now, and how do we do this? And so we started masterminding twice a year together in retreats. And what we noticed is that oftentimes someone was ahead of us and they would pull us forward, and sometimes we were ahead of somebody else and we would pull them forward. So we literally started like lifting as we were climbing, trying to figure this thing out. And what ended up happening was, when I look back over those 8 years, our net worth tripled. My time that I dedicate to my business is actually a lot less because I have a lot more joy in other areas, but our businesses have grown despite that. I'm more aware in our marriage. I'm more present with our daughter at school, and all of these different things personally started happening. And so in 2019, we decided to take it to a larger audience and grew to 200 women that we got to influence. And now we have 100 women. There will be 800 at our next retreat for Her Best Life in November.
That's big.
But our mission is
big.
Yeah, it's big.
Yeah.
But it's really all about helping to build and foster community and to amplify the voices and lives of women in business around the world. And because of that, we gave $65,000 last year to worthy causes. And we're on a mission to help educate women in impoverished countries to be able to help them grow their communities too. Because we know when we're educated, and like the education we have at KW, when we're educated, everything else helps, right? Everything else grows and blooms and blossoms around us. So we just got back from pouring into 25 women in Mexico, and it was amazing. So
I love that. And I had the privilege of being at your first event back when it was called Amplify. Yeah. And it's so interesting because I think that I would imagine when y'all left the stage on that last day, you thought, wow, there's a real need for this, right? And I think that's such an interesting thing, is that when we find what people need, whether that be in real estate with the consumer or within our network, or if we can find a need and then provide value, it just blows up from there, right? You didn't go create a need. There was a need, you saw it, you met it. And it's just exciting to see that grow. So I encourage you women to check out Her Best Life. And there's a lot of just great opportunity. Yeah, great momentum in that. So, okay, so let's talk about the last 3 years, because you've had a tough last 3 years,
Super fun.
Right?
Super great.
I mean, I know there's been great joys in all of that also. And you had COVID, and you were probably one of the more locked down people that I knew during COVID, right? Just because of your dad being sick and all of that dynamic that brought with us. But share with us just a little bit about your journey over the last 3 years, because so many times we just see all the wins, we just see all the success, and we don't know what's happening behind the scenes. And so share with us, Seychelle.
Yeah, it's I look back and I'm like, I learned and grew so much. And if I could go back and repeat the last 3 years doing exactly what happened, knowing what I know now, I'm just going to tell you right now, I would give it 2 thumbs down, and I would not do it again. I learned a lot, but I would not like to go back and do it again. Everyone's like, oh, I would suffer again. I'm like, no, would not.
Thank you for that authentic answer, because I think sometimes we're like, I would do it again because of the lessons I've learned. Really? Would you?
Like, no, actually, no, I would not. So I mean, just a high level was our we did 97 million in 2019. Our entire sales side of our team fell apart at the beginning of 2020 in January. We had one salesperson and 120,000 a month in expenses. Went to family reunion. It was awesome. Launched Empire Building Podcast, which has been awesome. And then COVID hit, and we had no sales team that we were rebuilding, and really determined not to lose our awesome people that have been with us a really long time on the ops side. And so we started rebuilding. And we thought, I mean, y'all all remember COVID, that was fun. And so Nick, my husband, was awesome, and we divided and conquered and had to figure out how to homeschool her. And my dad had really advanced Parkinson's. And so we were, as Teresa said, one of the more locked down people, because he had trouble swallowing already. So that meant that, getting something that's a respiratory illness is like extra catastrophic for him. So we were pretty locked down. And so we learned to lead. We had been using Zoom because our operations director was already on Zoom in Oklahoma City. But we really leaned in on Zoom. It was so nice for everybody else to join us on that journey of Zoom. It was great.
You're such a leader, Say, in every way. Always such a leader, the head of the pack.
That was so great. I was like, oh, I know this one. I know Zoom. But yeah, so I mean, through that, we had our one of our 2 remaining salespeople that we had on the team. Her husband passed away also during that time, and he was a really dear friend. And there's a gift that we got given, which is she moved back up to Dallas and couldn't find a house, so we sold her one of our rental properties. And as we were remodeling that for her, we needed to figure out the 1031 exchange situation because we weren't quite ready to claim the capital gains on that yet. And do y'all, show of hands, do you guys do vision boards by any chance? Does anyone do vision boards? So we would do vision boards with our team, and on the business side, I'm going to be honest, I was nailing the vision board on the business side. I was like, yes, I am owning this. And on the personal side, I don't know if anyone else resonates with this, but sometimes maybe that takes a backseat to your achiever side of you that gets a lot of dopamine from success. And so we had like date nights that were like scattered on as far as how often they were being done. And we had a lake house that we had moved. Like I would just cut it out. So I was like, someday we'll arrive and then we're going to go buy this lake house. Let's arrive. And so I would move it from year to year to year to year. I think I moved it for 7 years, and it was just cut out, because it's the same house, just rinse and repeat. And we were trying to figure out this 1031 exchange situation, and I'm getting ready one morning, and literally this vision board is behind me in my bathroom, and this darn lake house, y'all, is literally jumping off of the page because I had moved it so many times. It was literally leaping off the page, and I'm sitting there getting ready. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're all locked down anyways. Maybe we could work from Michigan. And like, mind you, that year before, I think I had taken like a week off total on vacation. Because I didn't think I earned it or deserved it or was worthy of it. All those limiting beliefs that we give ourselves. And so I was like, why don't we just what if we looked for a place up in Northern Michigan near your parents, where Nick had always wanted to buy a place? I kid you not, we ended up finding something. We sold the house here for $220. We bought the lake house for $221. Exact, like, capital gains, even exchange. And it was a for sale by owner, tiny little rinky dink sign, like crazy artist, which is amazing. But like, I think it's a real testament to like what you put out there and your intentions, and not giving up on your dreams, even if you're not hitting them right away. That doesn't mean they're not worthy. That just might mean that they're meant for a different time or a period. And we left and literally worked for 90 days that year in 2020 from Michigan, and remodeled this like super 1970s lake house that now does not look 1970s, looks very cute on the inside. But we were like, you know what, like, this is something we've always wanted to do. And so in the middle of all of this chaos, I think for me it was learning that massive amounts of joy and massive amounts of pain can coexist, which was a really really cool experience. And so we ended up homeschooling Quinn, or virtual schooling Quinn, for a year and a half. During this process, we rebuilt our sales team. In the process, my parents' house, the house I grew up in, flooded. And so then we moved them in with us, and then moved them again, and then moved him into assisted living because he was declining pretty rapidly with dementia. And then moved Barb into a house behind us, which is really great. We bought our house right behind us, and continued to rebuild during this whole process, and lead our team and figure out how to grow and do it virtually because we were limited in what we could do in person. And I think for me, it was just the struggles don't necessarily change, right? But your willingness and acceptance to move through it faster does. And so that's probably the part I would repeat, is learning that part of it and learning the joy part of it. But yeah, it was like, I feel like I just kind of like, y'all would be like, hey, come to this, come to that. And I'd be like, I'll see you when we're back, like finish dealing with all of this. So yeah, so that would be a quick summary.
I think that's such a powerful statement. Massive amounts of pain and joy can coexist. I think that is something that most people don't know, or most people don't allow themselves to be in. And I think that is a really, really powerful thing. And I appreciate you sharing that with us. And just, I had the privilege to go to your dad's service, in his celebration of life. And I wish I would have known him, because I can see why you are how you are. And obviously I know your mom. And so I knew a lot of why you are how you are, because she is just an incredible woman. And what a legacy you've had with both of your parents. And they've done well. And again, Melissa Dunn's on this call. She's homeschooling her kiddos. I again, like, everybody with children, just bow down to all of the ones
hands down. Y'all are amazing. I don't know how you do it. I'm not wired that way, and I think
it's
incredible. and your business, it's incredible. Truly, you've done awesome. I think what was interesting too during that process was, I think sometimes because social media puts out this, like, you want to look good, right? You want to be right. Like, we naturally already feel that way, but then social media, like, 10X is that feeling. I think it actually causes people to suffer in silence more, not from like a martyr standpoint, but you don't, like, you're with COVID, you're like already not getting human in-person connection. And then on top of that, you already have that desire to like, I'm fine, everything's fine, that's great. Like, and so you
Mhm.
don't necessarily want to be negative or talk about things that are a struggle. And so then it causes people, I think, to suffer in silence more, which then causes, I mean, for me, it caused probably a little bit of a martyr syndrome where I was like, okay, I will find joy when I get through this. Like once I get to the other side, then I have permission to go find joy again. And then it just like didn't end, y'all. I was like, what? Okay, well, I'm gonna have to figure out how to find joy somewhere in here because this is not my favorite time. And I'm not someone that's just gonna keep like suffering. This is not fun. So I think I think finding ways to give yourself permission to take a break, even in the midst of like with my dad, it was 23 years of Parkinson's, and the last 3 were like not great. And so um finding ways in his care to have joy, or finding ways with him to create memories and joy in the midst of that
Mm.
was just, it was so cool. It was really cool, really really cool.
Yeah.
And in this market,
There's
right,
always
we're gonna have to
gifts,
find.
right?
Mhm.
I love
Yep,
that.
we'll have to find that in this market too.
All right. Well, if you have listened to Seychelle's podcast, you can throw her some love in the chat. And if you haven't, please put it on your listening list. It's one of my favorites, empire building. So Seychelle, tell us about how that's come about. What have you learned in that process? Because I think just having to have content and value requires us to personally grow, right? Because
Oh yeah,
like if you're not growing,
big time.
you got nothing to say. And you guys are always bringing the value. So share a little bit about that. I'd love you to share your favorite episodes with us. So if somebody wants to go check out the favorites, I'm just curious what your favorites were and why.
Yeah. I have different ones. Thanks y'all for the shout outs in the chat. I love that. It's been such a cool journey, right? If you want to go grow and master something, go teach it. And so for us, this has been an act of love inward, and that these are areas like usually when we're doing an episode, the person that writes it is the one that needs the most help or growth in that area. And then the ones that are mastering it come and backfill the content, which has been really cool. So instead of it being like, I'm the best at this, I'm going to write it, it's actually like, no, who needs to work on this the most? And then we go backfill with the ones who are nailing it, which has really been neat. And so I have 3 episodes that I'm really loving right now, and I think are also really relevant for this market that we're in. The first one is called Do You Have an Upper Limit Problem? And it is episode 120. Are you guys familiar at all with what the upper limit is? It's really neat. We all subconsciously have upper limits in different areas of our life and reasons why we have those. And so that episode like really kind of like Gay Hendricks wrote it, and it's a really cool concept. But that's a really neat one because it kind of explains it, and I see it popping up in all different areas of my life now that I'm like aware of it. Own Your Strengths, I think, is something we need to lean into, and that's one of our episodes. It's 133. But it really talks about like doing more of what you love and less of what you don't, and how to actually create a business around that that's fueled by that. And I think in this market, when you have to do more to get results, doing things that you love is a really important part of that, and do more of those things because that will get you more results faster. And then the leadership series that we did, I think whether you have a team or an assistant or just you, I think leadership is something that starts inward and goes outward. And so we have a series that we did at the end of last year. It was really great. It's episode 123 is where that one starts. And that's a really great one. I think our lid is going to be raised in this market more and more and more in the best of ways. And so the faster we can get to the path of becoming better leaders for ourselves and for others, the more we and our businesses will grow. So those are my 3 faves right now.
Okay, I love it. I remember specifically the upper limits one because that one was very impactful for me as well. And your second recommendation of finding what you love and working mostly in your strengths is perfect because our Huddle series, for those of you who've been tuning into Huddles in the morning, our February series is To Know Me is to Love Me. And we are talking about our personality, our behavior, our gifts. How do we know who we are, what we're great at? And spend time really mastering our strengths as opposed to quote unquote fixing all of our weaknesses. We're just going to be happier, healthier, and more productive, all of that. So I love it. Yes, it's a great podcast, and it's for dudes too, not just women. Everybody will get value out of it.
Absolutely.
And
actually, if you have we have a lot of men that listen to that for themselves. We also have a lot of men that have sent us notes on like, this perspective is interesting to hear, like this challenge or this opportunity or this growth zone from a different perspective too. Like they're like, all of a sudden my sister makes sense, or all of a sudden my director of ops makes sense, or all of a sudden my so-and-so in my life makes sense to me, you know?
So this
it's
podcast,
like,
you're
like,
saying works miracles,
really,
and now
like,
men understand women because of this. Okay. So this is like, this
bridging
is
the
like,
gap.
I mean, seriously, that is like some serious content. I'm gonna make sure Tommy's listening. I'm not sure. I'm sure, I know he has.
Yeah,
I need
like
to make
we
sure he's on
literally
it.
had two men come to our, yes, I know, Tommy. That's kind of a cool thing too, though, where you're like, hey, this is a topic I'm struggling with, or this is an area that I'm trying to work on in my life or with my person, whatever, you know, whoever's in my life. Like it's really helpful. We have a Her Best Life happy hour, which is for men and women and every identity in between, at family reunion, which we would love to have you guys come join if y'all want. It's going to be so great, and it's always like you always meet the most interesting people from across the country. It's a great networking event.
And we need to RSVP for that, correct?
Do RSVP for that, because there is a limit of how many seats we have, or how many slots we have.
Make sure you guys, so, then we'll get you the link.
We'll get you the link for that. And what was really cool though is the last one we did was for the ladies, if you will. We actually had 3 husbands come and personally thank us for the impact we have had either on their marriage or their business or their relationship, and how it's impacted them. So it was really cool. Neat. I loved that. I was like, oh, that's awesome.
That's amazing. I love it. Okay. So let's talk real estate 2023. I'd love to hear, you've gone through a shift before. You've gone through all the things. You've been in this game a long time, beyond your age, as you said from the beginning, you started this young. So what are your expectations this year? Just share with us a little bit about your approach with your team. What do you think we need to know to succeed this year in real estate?
I love how Tommy started this meeting, because I think that's the first thing you need to know is know your numbers. Know your finances, and also know your business numbers and the market numbers, right? So knowing your numbers is really crucial. The things we're watching on a weekly basis, and now have since 2015, is every week we watch the number of active homes available in the market. We watch the number of new listings that have come on, the number that went under contract, the number that sold, and the number of canceled expireds, because that tells our story. And so like I think it was February 28th, we knew the market was shifting, and the Dallas Morning News didn't write their first story until Mother's Day. And so it gives us, by watching those numbers on a weekly basis, it gives us the gift of usually somewhere between 60 and 90 days of a sprint ahead, where even if you're not like killing it at that, at least you can fail forward really like aggressively during that time. Or by the time everybody else is like, wait, what? You're like, I haven't figured it out. So it gives you a little bit of a head start. So knowing your numbers. The second one is actually something we talked about at the retreat this week, which is the idea of, during a market shift, living frugally or with frugality. And that does not mean you just sacrifice everything. I loved this definition of it. Living frugally in this definition meant investing or spending extravagantly in the like tiny areas that bring you the greatest amount of joy or the greatest amount of results. Like spend extravagantly in those, and then cut mercilessly in the areas that don't. And I thought that was so good, of just like a nice, clear perspective of like, it's also okay to have some things that you're like, I'm gonna splurge on that because it's the thing that brings me the most amount of joy. But then in the other areas, cut mercilessly, so that you're not getting yourself into an overspending or into a loss statement in this market. So live frugally. I thought that was really good.
Love that.
And then the other thing I was thinking about, Teresa, was in the last market, I was like, 2 years into real estate, and our family had kind of a crisis in the middle of it. And so I became like the listing agent a month before the market hit. We put up our first flip on the market the day the market shifted. That was super cool. And I then ended up taking over our team 3 months later, all in the middle of the beginning of the shift. And so I was like, I'm like 24 and I don't know what I'm doing. And so, and now I'm having to learn all the things. And something that is really helpful for me was doing time audits and figuring out where your schedule gives you energy and where it depletes your energy. And so the secret that I learned to that is like once a month, I will track like from like actually today until February 15th, like the first 2 weeks of the month, I like really clock my time really tightly. Like I like everything. I'm like, Seychelle got 90 glasses of water, or like I had these meetings, or like I checked emails for 2 hours, or whatever it is, like really being honest with myself about where my time is actually being spent. And then at the end of the 2 weeks, without judgment, I just look at like the tracking and I say, okay, with a highlighter, the green is what gave me energy and the red is what did not. And then I look at my calendar and say, okay, how much of my like schedule gave me energy in the last 2 weeks and how much of it didn't, right? And then I work really hard to reorganize my schedule to where I have more green zones and fewer red. And sometimes the red becomes somebody else's job description for a future hire, or for someone we have on the team now that I need to get rid of something. And sometimes it's just that I wasn't mindful enough either in my planning or in my boundary setting to stay in the areas that give me more joy. And so
I love that.
that's really, really helpful. And I doing that monthly, especially in a market shift, is really helpful, because then I can stay like full of energy and full of reserves, so that I have more to give to other people. So
I love that. I
that's
would
been really helpful.
echo anybody to do that exercise. I think that's perfect, just awareness. Because the truth is we don't have unlimited energy. And I think sometimes we look at really successful people and we think that they just have more energy, right? Or they just have the secret sauce. And the reality is you figure out how to utilize that energy with the greatest amount of leverage, meaning you get the greatest amount of output with the energy that you put in, the greatest amount of results, and how to manage that energy over time. So I love that. Anything else kind of just on business for this year?
Yes, actually, it's the first thing you do in the day makes a difference. It is, because you don't think about it, but whatever you do right, either when you wake up or right when you get out of bed, is your first habit of the day. And so you just have to like be aware of, literally it's your first thought, your first habit, your first whatever it is. So for me, I literally have like a jug of water by the side of the bed for me, because hydration, I know, gets me like everything else dominoes for me off of hydration. And so for me, like before I even like I wake up, turn off my alarm and immediately chug like a huge glass of water. I'm not saying that's what you need to be. It could be daily affirmations. It could be a mindset. It could be like moving your body, whatever it is, like your first like couple of steps that you do in the morning, like that sets up how your time or your energy or your day flows. And so like I'm always just really careful, like I don't like turn on the news right away, or I don't check my email right away, because that becomes somebody else's like to-do list, then becomes my to-do list if I check my email right away. And so just really being mindful of like how I enter the day sets the tone for the rest of it. And that kind of helps create boundaries around that for you too.
Yeah, no,
So,
I love
yeah.
that. And we actually just got done with Atomic Habits in Morning Huddle. And right. It's not always the big
Yes,
things
I love
that
that
we
book
choose,
so much.
right? It's the small choices that then we can add up over time, that make the biggest, most dramatic results, right? So I think that is such great advice. Okay, two more kind of short questions. So you mentioned at the beginning, you've been at Keller Williams since the beginning. And you have been passionate about our company and just a voice out of our company. So why are you still passionate about Keller Williams after all these years?
I'm actually really crystal clear on this one. And it is like if someone makes a decision of a company or a brokerage based off of money, you can find deals everywhere, right? Like you can find deals anywhere, everywhere. I think we're the best deal at KW. Money leads to a like P&L decision. And what KW has done for me is it has created a journey for me on who I'm becoming and the people that are in my life and the mindset that I have and the wealth I get to build. And you can't put just a tangible dollar figure on that, because I am such a different person because Keller Williams has been a part of my life and the people that are in it have changed my life. And so for me, this journey with KW is about who I'm becoming and how I'm growing. And I would argue, I don't think there's another company out here that is as committed to that journey and process as Gary Keller and all of our leadership at GO are. So for me, we pay our cap in 2 weeks every year. It's like, take my money. Great. It's about the opportunity and the journey and who I'm becoming and the wealth I get to build, both in relationships, health, and also in wealth, literally. And the people we get to lead that really KW does for me. And I can't find that anywhere else. I challenge you to look around. You're not going to find it. So for us, that's a very easy choice.
I love that. Okay. So give us your reading recommendations. So either what's on your nightstand that you're going to read, or what have you read that we all need to pick up?
Yeah, I have a couple actually. So I just finished reading the book 30-Day Stay by Sarah Weaver. That's she wrote it in conjunction with Bigger Pockets, but actually she's a KW agent, super smart, all about the midterm rentals. And as our HOAs are getting rid of short-term rentals, I think it's a really compelling opportunity to be educated in that space for our clients and also for us personally in the midterm space. And it's very tactical. It's not like an airy fairy. It's like, this is what you do. Love that. So that's super easy and implementable. I'm actually currently reading Coach Wooden and Me by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And it's about his 50-year relationship with Coach Wooden. And I'm loving that. Because it's all about going far together and the history and sort of how all of that played. So that one's a great one. And then at the end of the year, I read Unbroken by Laura Hildebrand about Louis Zamperini and World War II, because I love World War II stuff. And then after I finish Coach Wooden, I'm actually going to read The 4-Hour Workweek again by Tim Ferriss, because I think this market is going to require us to be able to do more with less time. And so like just getting in the mindset of time hacking and using my time with whatever I'm willing to give my business as efficiently as possible, for me, I think is how I'm going to win this market. And so that's my next one.
Seychelle, thank you. I adore you. Guys, was this valuable today?
I love you, Teresa. Thank you. I love you guys.
Anybody have a question for Seychelle?
I just want to fill her bucket because, I mean, over the last few years, it has been a rough journey for many of us. And I think just being the rawness and the authenticity of the podcast has given us permission to not be okay. And at the same time, keep pushing through it all. So I just wanted to say thank you, Seychelle.
No, I know a little bit about your story, so thank you.
Love that. Anybody else? Okay, well, say again, thank you. How lucky are we that you are at Dallas Preston Road? I mean, seriously, it's like she's kind of a big deal in the Keller Williams world. So to have her as one of our own is truly such a blessing.